Yeah, it was great.
That was a great night.
It was, yeah. Thank you all for coming. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Wyatt Shields. I'm the city manager for the City of Falls Church. Welcome to our first open town hall meeting on the proposed FY 2026 budget. I have about 20 slides to go through, and so part of the purpose today is to engage with you on the plans for the coming fiscal year. My slides will provide some information out, but then we want to open things up and use the majority of our time together for any questions, comments, suggestions, advice as we move forward into the coming fiscal year. I'm going to do two things before we get into the slides. One, invite Mayor Hardy to come forward to see if she'd like to make any welcoming remarks. And then go to Mary Catherine Chase, our communications director. She'll be watching online. This is a meeting that has participants both virtual and in person, and she'll help coordinate for people who are online how they can ask questions and participate as well. But Mayor Hardy.
Thank you for joining us. So in live, we also have Councilmember Downs and Councilmember Snyder and likely a few other council members joining us. And so I always say that this is one of the most important decisions we make each year, is to ensure we are being good fiscal stewards of taxpayer dollars and that the budget reflects the priorities of the community. And we are just at the beginning of the process, so we invite everyone to tune in along the way. We look forward to hearing your comments. I think as Wyatt will talk about, we have certainly good news locally, but what's top of mind for all of us is obviously the backdrop of what's happening at the federal government and what that means for our businesses and our community members. And so planning for that will be an important part of the budget process over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mayor Hardy. And I'll make a few other staff introductions as well. We have Caitlin Sopsey, who coordinates our capital improvements program. She is here. Our treasurer, Jody Acosta, is here. Our finance director, who really leads the whole city staff work on putting the budget together, is here. Our director of community relations, Cindy Mester, is here. And our PIO, our communications director, is Mary Catherine Chase. So Mary Catherine, maybe if you could just help those who are participating virtually understand how they can participate.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shields. Participants online, you can put your questions in the chat at any time throughout the presentation. You can also, at the end of the presentation, raise your hand and we will call on you as well. For those participating online, you can see we also have captioning that is available. And if you need any accessibility requests, please post that in the chat and we'll be able to help you out today. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mary Catherine. And I noticed Councilmember Flynn just walked in. Welcome. So I have the cover slide of our budget book on the screen, and it's the theme of this year's budget is sustaining momentum together. And thematically, the mayor addressed this in her comments, but we're, as a national capital region and as a country, going into a very unsettled time in terms of our economy, in terms of impacts to households in our community who are impacted by federal budget cuts and by layoffs. The City of Falls Church, about 16% of our workforce in the city, residents who are in the workforce, 16% of them work for the federal government. That's just kind of like one metric in terms of how impactful these changes that are happening in the federal government impact this community. We're very mindful of that. And at the same time, we are a growing city. We have new households that are coming, that are joining the city right now as West Falls opens up, as Broad and Washington opens up, and over the course of this fiscal year as Madera Falls Church opens up. So two kind of conflicting ideas as we build this budget. And you'll see in our budget numbers, the budget is growing. Even with that economic uncertainty that is facing us as a community, as a region, as a nation, because we are a growing city. And we're trying to sustain momentum towards some of the key strategic initiatives that the City Council has initiated really in the past 5+ years and try to continue to make progress on those. Today's budget town hall meeting, let me just put it in the context of the process. It all is sort of geared towards a final vote by the City Council on May 12th. So we have a month and a half or so where we'll be engaged with the community and the City Council on this budget plan for the coming year. The budget goes into effect on July 1st of this year. That's the way our fiscal year works and all local governments and the state government in Virginia works. We have a budget work session on Monday, and we're going to talk about what I'm going through today, including the capital improvements program. We'll do a deep dive on that with the City Council, and we'll discuss some concepts for potential solid waste, some options for financing our curbside solid waste services in the city as we move forward. A couple other key notes. On April 14th is when we'll have first reading on all the ordinances associated with this budget. And then again, May 12th being when the City Council will wrap up its work and is scheduled to take action. The public can access all the information, these presentations, the videos, everything right here at fallschurchva.gov/budget. And if you'd like to put comments in writing, if you think of them outside of today's hearing, send it to budget, and we'll read them. They'll be part of the record, and we'll engage with you that way. So I said I had about 20 slides. We're going to organize it first, just a quick overview of revenues. We'll discuss some of the strategic priorities that the City Council has laid out. We'll talk about, at a high level, our capital improvement investments, and we'll have a kind of a very high level conceptual discussion of solid waste financing options. So here's our revenue picture for the City Falls Church, and Tina and others who are long veterans of these budget presentations will recognize this pie chart. About 57% of the city's budget is driven by real estate taxes. So 38% comes from residential property owners and 19% from commercial property owners. Then as you go around the pie chart, we have the personal property, which is our car tax, along with business property taxes, and then a series of business taxes like the sales tax, meals tax, B-Poll, and other taxes. So all in, commercial revenues comprise over 50% of the total revenue picture for the city. But let's talk a little bit more about real estate, because it's a really important part of the city's tax base. We are a growing city, as I said in the introductory comments. Overall, 10.5% growth in assessed value in the city. Half of that is coming from the new construction that you see around the city right now. 5.5% of that's coming from normal market growth. And I've highlighted in yellow for homeowners in the city that market appreciation of 6.9%. So in the next slide, we'll talk about a tax rate reduction to try to mitigate some of the impacts of that market appreciation that homeowners are experiencing in the city. So what the budget is built around is a real estate tax rate of $1.1850. That would be a decrease of 2.5 cents relative to today's rate of $1.21. The budget does not propose changes to other tax rates, but it does propose some increases in our stormwater and our sanitary sewer fees, really just to keep up with inflation. So for the median homeowner's tax bill, that would be, with the reduction in the tax rate, about a 3.4% for the median homeowner in the city, or about $400 for the median homeowner in the city. The chart shows some trend lines on that. The tax rate, we have been able to reduce the tax rate in 4 out of the past 5 budget years because of the growth that is happening in the city and because of increased assessed value of property that's just been driven by market forces. And with those rate reductions, there still has been, a steady impact. It was usually between around $300 to $500 per year on the median homeowner's tax bill. So other key taxes for the city, the personal property tax, we do forecast healthy growth in that, but that's entirely driven by new households moving into the city and joining the tax rolls. The sales tax, about a 5% increase is the forecast. And then meals and B-Poll, we're projecting just to stay flat in the coming fiscal year, noting some of the economic uncertainty that we discussed at the outset. Hotel taxes, we're still recovering from the pandemic, and we are seeing positive trends in our visitors to the city and staying at city hotels. Now we're going to shift to the expenditure side, and here's a pie chart that just shows kind of the big picture. The overall budget is just under $134 million, so that includes the schools and all the other general fund expenditures. So the schools, education is 42% of the city budget. Debt service is 8%. And then going around the horn, some of the other kind of the key ones, public safety is the next largest area of spending for the city. That includes police and our fire services contract with Arlington County. Public Works is next at 7%. Rec, parks, and the library 5%. And then so on around the horn. So in terms of kind of the big numbers in the budget, the bottom line is that the budget is decreasing by 2.8% next year, but that is largely due to some reductions in our reliance on capital reserves and our payments on debt service. Our operating budgets for the general government are growing 6.5%, and the school transfer growing 5.6%. I do propose in the budget for the council's consideration a $500,000 revenue contingency in the event that this has been a very difficult year to make revenue projections, and this is to provide some buffer for the city and for the schools as we go through the fiscal year if our revenue forecasts were overly optimistic. Debt service, a $1.8 million decrease, and that's because the Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School debt is coming off the books. For those of us who've been in the city for a long time, you remember when that debt issuance was made, and that was a really big step for the city. That debt is being retired. A lower reliance on capital reserves and pay-as-you-go in the coming budget, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with the CIP. So that's an overview. The City Council does a lot of advanced work in terms of working with staff on strategic priorities, providing budget guidance, and adopting amendments to our comp plans, all of which go into budget planning. The City Council has laid out 5 big areas of progress for the city on environmental sustainability, improvements to our transportation network in the city, particularly to improve safety for all users of our streets, cyclists, people on foot, transit, as well as people in vehicles. Economic development, growing our tax base, providing housing for all who want to live here, and a lot of initiatives in good governance. And so that helps organize our work on the budget and trying to sustain momentum together towards these strategic initiatives. And that comes in sort of 3 big areas: investments in people, advancing safety, and investments in core infrastructure. The budget, in many respects, is a pretty simple budget this year. There are these big sort of 5 new things in it: funding for compensation. We do have a heavy lift on some of our interjurisdictional contracts, $903,000 for those. Street maintenance, an increase of $700,000. Some investments in our IT and our financial systems, $150,000, and the $500,000 for the revenue contingency. That's kind of it in terms of the new money in the budget and where it's going, but a little bit more detail. In terms of compensation, what the budget proposes is a 5% increase for employees. That includes our public safety employees and our civilian positions. Investments in our IT and financial systems. This is investments in people who do business with the city. We want to make those transactions more seamless, use technology so that people can pay their taxes or get building permits more seamlessly and efficiently as they do business with the city, and also make investments so our employees can do their work more efficiently. We have a $500,000 investment in affordable housing. That's the same as last year, so we're sustaining that level of funding in the proposed budget. Investments in safety. The city moved to body-worn cameras about 5 years ago. We need to upgrade and refresh that technology, so there's $133,000 for that. We sustained the $200,000 for neighborhood traffic calming. We're sustaining the effort to provide new fire hydrants in areas that are underserved throughout the city. We are asking the council to support a position that we created this past year to help the police department move towards reaccreditation. The professional standards manager is really crucial position for our police department. And one of the big increases in our jurisdictional contracts is our fire services contract, a $500,000 increase there. The key investment in the operating budget for core infrastructure is in paving. Well, we have heard from our community survey and from comments from the public, we need to do more on paving. Our Public Works Department knows that and has been fighting for more money for that. This budget provides a $700,000 increase for a total of $2.2 million for roadway maintenance. Every time that we do pave a new street, that's when we implement the bike master plan and other pedestrian improvements with lane markings and other safety improvements that are associated with the paving. And then the remainder of that really is just for core maintenance for our sidewalks and crosswalks, et cetera. Investments in the capital improvements program. I'll focus on the FY26 because that's what's kind of here and now before us. But taking the full 6-year plan, it's a $148 million investment plan in this community. And the CIP is where a lot of the action is and where the City Council spends a lot of its time focusing on our plans in this area. Transportation is the largest part of our CIP with $9 million proposed in investments in FY26. Public facilities, $1 million, with Oak Street School being an important part of that. We have investments in our sanitary sewer system and specifically to help manage some of the flows that happen when we have heavy rains and that water gets into the sanitary sewer system and then goes to Fairfax County. And working with our partners in Fairfax County, we're going to invest to manage that at a higher level than we have in the past. And then on stormwater, I'll just note that we're in the process right now of administering about $21 million of stormwater improvements across the city. We've been very successful in getting state money with the help of our elected delegation to the state to help us with that big lift. And those are projects that you see underway right now. Two recent ones were the Trammell Branch project and the Hillwood project that was just finished this fall. So we have $600,000 in the 6-year program, but we're already working through that $21 million that the council's already appropriated. Where does the money come from for the CIP? We do have debt proposed in the CIP in the out years. So no debt that would be supported by general taxes until FY28, with the big one in the CIP as a reinvestment in the Robert Goff Operations Center, what we call familiarly as the property yard. And so we're still in the planning phase for that, and we're going to engage with community on kind of what those concepts can look like. But that's a really important investment in the capital plan. Sanitary sewer fund, that 22.6 is both for new capacity purchases and this rainfall out of the sanitary sewer system problem that we're trying to address. That would be financed through the sanitary sewer fund. We've been successful, as I noted, in getting grants. So $46 million of the CIP is funded with federal and state grants. With the federal things that are happening right now, we're monitoring those very closely, but we have no information right now that indicates that any of the grants that we have been relying on in the CIP will be negatively impacted. But obviously, we're watching that very closely. And we do propose just under $10 million of capital reserves, money that we have built up over time, and we draw those down as part of the CIP as well. So we're going to do a deep dive with the City Council on the CIP on Monday night, and look forward to that discussion. So I'll close with just a few words on solid waste financing options. So the city has curbside service. About just over 3,000 households in the city are served with that curbside service for recycling, trash, and some voluntarily sign up for the compost crew service as well and pay a little extra for that compost service. And so the question before the city is, should we replace, currently that is all paid for out of the general fund. So sort of all the general taxes that we've discussed tonight cover curbside service as well. Should we replace that tax support with a new fee? And in our solid waste management plan, going back to 2003, it has called for considering a fee to send sort of a price signal to customers and to incentivize reuse and recycling, and to have people use the service, really see what the direct cost is when it gets transported to the Fairfax County Waste to Energy Transfer Station. But it does have impacts, and it'll have some varying impacts in terms of what that would mean for households in the city. The basic idea is you'd lower the real estate tax further than what is proposed, the 2.5 cents that's already built into the budget, and implement a fee instead. And so it's a complex topic. I want the public to be aware that the City Council has asked that this be taken up and considered, because it is in our solid waste management plan that we should consider this in the future. And so we'll be doing that, and we'll do a detailed exploration of those options at the work session next Monday on April 7th. So again, here's where we are in the process. This is our first town hall on the budget. I wanted to provide just a high-level overview of what's in the budget, and we'll be working together over the coming month. And again, this is where people can find information about that. And if you pause, let me just turn off my phone, which I should have done at the beginning of this meeting. There we go. So that is the slides that I wanted to share with you all this afternoon, and I'll stop there and open it up for your thoughts, your questions, your comments. The City Council is here, and we'll be listening very carefully to your comments as well. Yes. And I will, because we do have folks virtual, I think what we'll ask people to do is to speak in the microphone, and that really is just for the people who are participating virtually. And we do have this meeting taped as well, so it'll be rebroadcast.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Downs. In the presentation you gave the City Council, I just wanted to clarify, you had talked about today the 2.7% increase in stormwater and sanitary, but the actual dollar amount isn't much, right?
That's right. So for the stormwater fee, that would be about a $7 increase for your average homeowner in the city, and for the sanitary sewer, that would be about a $14 annual increase in the sanitary sewer fund. So thank you for that question and comment, and that is, we've been recommending that the City Council do essentially a CPI-based adjustment to rates every year, and we've been doing that for the past 5 years, and that avoids sort of a shock to rates that, when we fall behind. And so for those who would like to ask questions, I would ask that you come forward to just for the microphone so that it can be captured. Yes, Mr. Thompson. That's right.
One way is concerned about stormwater, and we're concerned about it because we've had a history of problems, which we've addressed mostly on our own. But the latest concern and what drives me coming to the council and to this meeting, particularly today, is the T-zone development behind us. In the case of Arlington, when they did major rezoning for missing middle, citizens protested, they went to court, and basically the court ruled that when the city makes a zoning, when the county makes, or any group in the state of Virginia makes a major zoning issue, they should look at things like stormwater, sewage capacity, et cetera. It should be part of the analysis. It wasn't part of the analysis in Arlington, and they stopped development there and permits for missing middle development. It wasn't part of the analysis here either. I would like to see the city conduct a study. There's not money in the stormwater category now for such a study, but to conduct such a study, to look at what the impact of that is and to come up with some mitigation strategies for it. The property behind us, just as an example, is being graded and planned for a 50 to 100 year storm, which means to me they're protecting themselves against a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year storm that they think is likely because they don't think the system behind us is able to handle it, which we agree is probably not able to handle us, which means the bulk of that problem will then transfer to our property. So I would like to see the city include in its budget funds to actually study what are the impacts of T-zone, because there's more proposals to do more by right T-zone development throughout the city. Now there's a proposal on Lee Street and Oak Street and so forth. And I'd like the city to study this and to plan for it and put money in the budget to do that kind of analysis.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just clarify where is the storm problem or what's happening when I'm thinking that's the condos over there?
Right, that's where we are. We're at 502 West Broad Street. It's the Broadway condominium. So we sit at the confluence of multiple streams. From East Broad, West Broad, and down behind us on Lee Street. It goes out through Trips Run. If you know Howard Herman Park, that's where the exit is. Our building empties into that already overloaded system.
And so what happens then?
It backs up. When there's a major storm, water doesn't flow into the system. Water flows out of the system onto the street. There's a choke point where we are, and so there is flooding down below. There has been serious flooding down below. The city has addressed some of that as it affects private homes, but they haven't really addressed it in a way to limit it. There have been some efforts. Greening of Lincoln we were told that was going to be an effort that would have an impact on us, but we haven't gotten any input from that.
Isn't it then behind or part of where we have the townhouse
Yeah.
section and then
So the new townhouses is what I'm talking about in terms of the T-zone property development. Right, I went through the process of a site plan, and the only analysis in the site plan is the water coming off of that site. There's no analysis of what happens to the water after it gets off of that site and whether the city systems are capable of managing it. That's not part of the site plan development. So I'm suggesting the city needs to look at that issue to determine whether it needs to upgrade its infrastructure to handle the water coming off of these sites as they're developed.
So let me just speak just a little bit about stormwater, and thank you for the question, and thank you for sort of the long engagement we've had on these issues. So this, stormwater is a crucial service that the city provides, and the city, through the 2000s, 2010s, did a lot of studies on our stormwater system. We had the Army Corps of Engineers come in. We measured all of our pipes. We filmed all of our pipes. We have good data in terms of the assessment of our system, and we know that there are deficiencies throughout the system. In the response to the storms in July of 2019 in particular, that was one of the biggest floods that we've had in the city, but we've had recurring floods of real extreme rain events. And from that, we took that modeling data, but we also used the expertise of our residents and our city staff and identified the areas where we have the most frequent flooding concerns. And that resulted in what we call sort of the Big Six stormwater projects that we've been using funds to address right now. And that includes the Hillwood project, the Trammell Belt Branch project, just as two examples of those. Broadway or Broad Street is an area where we know that there has been surface flooding. It did not make the high priority list because generally that flooding was constrained into Broad Street itself. And the Broadway has some sort of particular issues relating to the drainage of that building, which I know that the Broadway Homeowners Association has taken a lot of pains to address. And so it is a real concern throughout the city. What the city tried to do is prioritize those areas where we're having the most frequent property damage due to flooding, and that's where the first efforts were. We'll continue to assess that. The City Council has also provided direction to provide more green infrastructure, and that's where the Greening of Lincoln project comes in. That will also decrease stormwater flows towards the Broadway and towards that whole co-branch watershed. And then one last note, in terms of redevelopment that happens, when you have some of the townhouses that are being built on Park Avenue, Each one of those does go through a process where they have to do water quality improvements and associated with that, water detention improvements. And so those projects do, for the 10-year event, which is the modeled, and that's sort of the state code world that we live in, it does improve the situation relative to the way it is today. But for the major events like that 2019 storm, all those systems get overwhelmed. The whole city is overwhelmed with floodwater, and property damage will continue to occur. And so that's just in a warming climate, the city council is very concerned about the frequency of that, and that's why we're making these investments in the stormwater system to try to mitigate that risk.
Hi, Matt Adams, Park Towers. I'm glad to see that the solid waste proposed change is now being incorporated into public comments. I think that's been overdue, so I'm glad to see that now. So that's one comment. Second comment, there's an important point on your slide there that I thought was missing, and that is you noted that single family residences and townhouses receive service. What's omitted from that slide is that multifamily owners in multifamily buildings also pay the tax but do not receive the service, which I think is important to include in that information to the public so that it's clear why there's a proposed change. Let's see, so I also have two questions. In the past, I think in the fall, there were 4 options for the solid waste proposal. You today, I think, mentioned reducing the real estate tax and charging a fee. Is there currently only one option on the table?
So I say today at a very high level just to let the public know that this conversation is going to be happening as the council debates the budget. But I also didn't want to get ahead of the presentation on April 7th. I will state that the materials for that April 7th work session are going to be posted online so people can see those and read those. And essentially what it's going to be is taking the fall discussion and updating it with some additional thinking and some more up-to-date numbers. And that's what we'll be discussing on April 7th. But I don't want to kind of get ahead of that discussion before the city council has had a chance to review it with staff.
Okay, and you said it would be available online before the work session?
Yeah, we're going to post the packet today, so we think that those materials will be available for review. So I'll try to project better, and if yes, indeed. And if you do have a comment, for those who walked in a little bit late, we're asking people to come and use the microphone, and that's principally for the benefit of people who are online.
Okay, and thank you. The second question is, I've heard some of the comments that council's made at meetings. I know there's much more conversation that goes on that I haven't been able to observe, but I'm curious. We're trying to establish, the people who are in favor of this solid waste proposal, making this change to be more equitable to the people who live in the community, is, and maybe council can speak to this, I don't know about now, but maybe later, but we're trying to figure out who would be covered by the proposed change and who would not. And I know council's probably still wrestling with that, but it would be very helpful to know these buildings or these homeowners would definitely be covered. These would not be covered for whatever reason. Maybe there's a contractual clause, maybe there's a contract with the city, or, these are still undecided, so that we can, the people who are affected by the change can be informed that there is this change that is being discussed and that it does affect them, and that they can voice their opinion to the city. Is there a way we can get that information?
So I think the best way would be to tune into the work session, and we'll walk through all the options. And I think the options are complex enough that it's not great for me to sort of ad lib it. and instead rather to walk through it in an organized way. And that's what we plan to do on April 7th.
Okay, and April 7th, are you suggesting that definition of buildings, homeowners that would be covered by that and ones that would not will be covered at that conversation?
So, right now, the curbside service that we provide is for, generally speaking, for townhouses and for single-family homes. And there's some rare exceptions where there's a condo where it is feasible for there to be a bin that's similar to the curbside service that's provided elsewhere. But as a general rule, that's who's served by the service today. We will have one option about expanding that service, but I will say that staff is not recommending that option because that gets into whole levels of complexity and sort of the business model that we're not prepared to take on. So really, where I think this will be going is really discussing the fee option or just keep it in the general tax rate. But I think April 7th would be a good organized discussion for it, and we'll go from there.
So are you saying that the option would, some of those options would obviate certain identifying homeowners that would be covered and not covered?
Well, if we go to a fee, the ordinance will be very clear about who pays that fee and who gets that service. So that is one thing that is part of the whole, as we go forward, and that would need to be clarified in the ordinance as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Am I still here? Some of your thunder art. I'm Andrew Olson, sorry, allergies. We'll do transportation now since we're doing stormwater, we've done solid waste. I want to say, first of all, I'm really glad to see the increase in repaving funding. Having been on CACT and heard from Public Works, their trials and travails of repaving, it's great to see that money come up. I actually went back and read through all the old budgets and sort of repaving, and it's fascinating to see, starting in like 2012, there's this constant line item of we're not spending enough on repaving, we're falling behind, and if you don't repave in time, it gets more expensive because the road degrades, and when you do a fix it, it's even more expensive, and so this is a compounding problem. So my question on repaving was where we are now for the proposed 2026, and no one likes it because it's not a sexy topic, it's paving the street, but do we have enough money in the budget now to be on that sort of 12 to 15 year cycle? And is there a bigger bill coming down the road from like catching up on all the work we didn't do since whatever, 2009?
So we do need to catch up. This is a good, I think, very strong step in the right direction. But we will be committed to continually trying to build that number so that we're taking care of our streets. And I will also note that, and this was discussed on Monday night, that we are using some capital reserves to help pay for this, and we need to transition that ultimately into the tax rate so that it is sustained. That's the other transition that we need to make through multiple budget years.
Okay. Yeah, that really been good to hear and great to see the change. As I read through this budget, my focus was very much on like the ROI of transportation investments, because in my goings on, I've seen that we only have so many engineering staff, and obviously there's other priorities in the budget, so transportation is what I focus on, but obviously not everything. So but the paving really concerns me, because if we don't repave, it just gets more expensive, and it's going to crowd out other things in the future. So great to see this step. On a similar, there's a couple other things in the SIP we can talk about later, but the other sort of ROI question I really have, more of just a comment, I think, to noodle on, is we've retained the $200,000 for the NTC program, and through my 3 years on CACT, I just really start to question the value of that program. I know it's popular, but if you go back and look at the projects, most of them are on streets where no one has been hurt in the last 5 years, like before doing the projects. And we have other streets where people are getting hurt regularly that aren't covered by NTC. A lot of the projects we do sort of a quick light solutions, paint some stuff, and we're coming back now on Nolan Street. We're coming back down now on Lincoln Avenue and other streets, and like redoing new projects because those first projects didn't deliver really what the goal the neighborhood wanted, regardless of what they voted on the project. So I don't know. If we're going to spend $200,000 a year, I hope we can spend it on places where people are actually getting hurt, and we can spend it on things that prevent them from getting hurt in the future. I know that's always the goal, but I think how we implement that program and where the money goes isn't actually lining up with getting a good return on that. food for thought or comment,
Well,
yeah.
I think it's a great comment, and for the public's awareness, Andrew has done a lot of work on the city in terms of analyzing data that is publicly available to evaluate street safety. And we as an organization are strengthening that function or that ability in the city to do that data analysis on a sustained basis. Where my preference would be as an organization is that we move towards data-based decisions, and that's what drives the dollars in terms of safety improvements in the city. The NTC is designed to be grassroots, citizen-activated requests, and that's a very positive thing as well. But it can be a very frustrating process, I think, probably for everybody. And ultimately, the goal is to make our streets safer for everybody who's using the public right-of-way and using data to make the targeted investments to produce that outcome. And so we'll continue, I think we're moving positively in that direction, and comments like these, I think, will help accelerate us in that direction.
Hi, as I'm sure you're aware, I'm Arthur Agan. I'm the current chair of the CACT, joined the same time as Andrew. I had a couple of comments, and Andrew stole some of my thunder. I am here as myself, not as a representative of the CACT. One of the things that I noticed was the $700,000. I applaud the increase. It's a significant increase. However, looking through the budget, I'm concerned because the unfunded element that the staff has requested was another 1.1 million, which says to me that we are really in a hole on the paving. And I would ask that, if possible, council could increase that even more, even though it is a significant increase. We're in a deep hole on the roads and the paving. The other piece of that is looking through the transportation element. I'm not seeing an increase in funding for sidewalks. So the walkability is, of course, critical and key for the community. I think that came out pretty loudly and clearly in the community survey. Right. Our sidewalks, we're working on small projects because that's the funds that are available. The larger projects with where we're trying to put in a sidewalk on a road that's a heavily traveled pedestrian thoroughfare and doesn't have one. Problem is the cost on those. They get complex, they get expensive, and so they don't get done. I would ask that maybe we look at that a little bit closer for the sidewalks in addition to the paving. Those were really my two biggest things, is we really just need to force we need to go a little crazy with that, I think, because we are in such a deep hole. I believe that's actually the largest unfunded element in the budget, and it's significantly larger.
It's a great comment, and we do want to continue to make progress of building that into the tax rate, building that into the base operating budget. Right now, we're using grants, like shown on the screen here, and capital reserves to help grow that, investments in that core infrastructure. Transportation is the biggest part of the CIP. Those projects are almost all sidewalk projects or intersection safety improvement projects. And so I would say, in some respects, the city is really ramping up. I mean, that is $60 million investment in 6 years on basically walking, biking improvements on our streets is a big deal. And so that's kind of when I say that the CIP is where the action is. I think this is an example of that.
And I would agree that the effort is there. It's just, we're in just such deep hole. It's right. Kind of like, how much can we do?
And these CIP projects, they're also complex and they're slow. And that's a thing that we all get frustrated by. But a big one that we're still in right-of-way phase for is, for instance, the Broad Street project, where we're going to be, if you think of like, along parts of Broad Street where we have the old 4-foot wide sidewalks, that project is going to expand those sidewalks, maybe not to the full 20-foot streetscape standard, but they're going to be ample sidewalks all the way down Broad Street using some federal grants that we've gotten. And so that's going to be very disruptive as we do that construction, but it's going to be, I think, a really significant walkability improvement for the city, just as one example that's in the CIP.
And I applaud that, and I know there's other project. What's also has always been a little unclear is how much of the hole that we're in is going to be addressed through CIP projects. So for instance, we know that Park couldn't wait, little section of Park couldn't wait, but the rest of it is slated for some significant development with the Great Streets project. Basically, it's going to get redone. Greening of Lincoln is going to redo Lincoln, which is in horrible condition underneath the beautiful skin coat that had to go in for water main breaks. But it's a little unclear how much of this, our roads are in terrible conditions, how much would be addressed through some of these CIP projects. I applaud finding other ways to address them, and it'd be good to see a little bit more of that.
So we'll keep making progress on it. Maybe just some other examples, like West Street. When we repaved West Street, maybe now 6 years ago, that years go by fast, might have been more than that. But that was a complete roadbed reconstruction, and that we did get some state money, so the state paid for half of it, and the city paid for the other half. That's generally what we have to do for those roadbed reconstructions to be affordable for our tax base.
Yeah, it's some of the sidewalks don't always fit on those.
That's a good point, too. Yeah.
About the pavement, can you give us a basic idea of what pavements and what areas you're talking about? Because I do walk around, I'm sure other folks around the city, but do you have something specific in mind that you're thinking as far as the pavement?
I'm primarily basing it on the reports from DPW. There have been studies they've done and looked at our roads. A significant portion of our roads are considered poor or very poor. If you look at a road and you see a lot of very fine cracks, kind of spider webbing, it may be fine to drive on, but it's an indication that it's a symptom of that underneath the roadbed is at end of life. And there have been instances where, and Lincoln is a good example, last year there was, if you go and look at it, there was a huge patch near Meridian. And the reason that patch happened was because there was a pothole, and DPW came in to repair the pothole, and they discovered that underneath it, there was nothing. It was in such horrible condition that they had to do a major dig it up, patch it, just to fix a pothole, because the underlayment, the roadbed was in terrible condition. And so the spider webbing that you see on a lot of the roads is a symptom of that.
The pernicious part becomes when you have that, then water gets down under that base and starts to degrade the base there, so it starts to accelerate itself and it gets even more and more expensive to fix it. So you want to catch it before it gets there.
Yeah, we're just in a deep hole on this. And
We're still digging the whole place up.
I think we've stopped getting deeper, but getting out of that hole is going to take, I think, more money. So, thank you.
Thank you, Art.
I realize I have an additional comment. Can we return the slide to the solid waste option slide? Thank you. So as it's phrased here, it says option, should the city replace tax support with a new fee? And I find that wording curious because it suggests a clear answer. You're removing support and adding a fee, which doesn't seem like a neutral way to phrase the proposal that's on the table. But I'm curious, when you say tax support, what does that mean?
It means that service is funded through general revenues.
Okay, good. So when you say tax support, you're saying that, like, when I pay the city for real estate tax and I don't receive that service, and I'm subsidizing people who do receive that service? Is that a fair
It
characterization?
is what it is. It's, if you're buying a meal in the city and you pay meals taxes, you're paying for it. Anybody who's paying any tax in the city, because this service is sort of bundled in with everything else, that's what that sentence means. And
Sure, okay, so that's taxpayers who are paying the tax but not need the service but don't receive the service, or subsidizing residents who receive the services. So I just want to be clear that that's what we're talking about, because I'm not sure that if people look at that at home or on the slide that would be clear. And also the new fee, it would be replacing subsidization with a fee, but yeah, I see your point. But thanks for the clarification. Yes.
Raise your hand and then make your way to the microphone. Absolutely.
I'd like to talk on briefly about the sidewalk issue, because first of all, thanks to you and thanks to the council for broadening the sidewalk in front of Beto Leather near the Spectrum. We've been dodging bicyclists and scooters and everything for years, and we were applauding the workers there, physically applauding them, and so thank you basically for doing that. I would say that, a lot of the attraction for people living in our building and in our community is the walkability and the sidewalk capabilities. I'm also glad to hear that you're talking about expanding the sidewalks on Broad Street, because that's great. But the sidewalks around here they seem to start and stop for no reason. Once you get off of the main streets and you go back into the communities, you'll walk halfway down the street and then the sidewalk will end and you have to go into traffic and across the street to walk the other half, or there may or may not be a sidewalk on the other half. So it doesn't seem, we talked about bike master plans and all that. I don't know if there's consideration for a sidewalk master plan to understand how to get from point A to point B without having to cross the street 4 times, because it does seem, for those of us who, for exercise purposes or even going to market or whatever, that it does seem like we're bopping in and out and on and off the street multiple times. Thank you.
Does this work? I'll just use my regular voice. Wyatt, your explanation to Matt left me in the dark a little bit.
For recordings.
Thank you. When he asked about the tax as, that would be replaced by a special fee, and the statement you said, well, everyone pays a meal tax in Falls Church. The people who are in Park Towers are paying the meal tax, but we're not getting the meal. We're not getting our trash picked up. And when you say it is what it is, that's what you said, that left me sort of, what is it? What are we getting? Please tell me.
Well, I don't think there's any need to be argumentative about it.
Oh, I'm not. I'm just asking a question.
But it is, solid waste has been paid for out of general revenues since the service began. And so that goes back to the 1940s, and that's the way it has been financed. And so what the council is asked to consider is there are alternate ways to finance it, and that could include a fee. We'll also present, some, back in the October presentation, we provided a range of options. A fee is one of the ones that I think the council will be looking at.
Okay, thanks. That was just clarify.
Okay.
Thank you. So we will get that.
Right. Let's see what council says.
Tina.
I never thought it would live long enough to hear the word. That's
Sorry.
So I hope that one night the city council in their meeting will have a part council meeting. And at the beginning say, nobody ever thought that it was ever going to happen. It's going to be definitely carried until 47,000 years. There was never ever going to be any.
Oh, we'll schedule a party. It's a good idea. The council had the same idea. We just kind of said, hey, this is good news. But yeah, it is. That was a really important achievement by the city to finance that middle school. And so it is a celebration that what's that? It was a $25 million debt issuance, and so at that time, I believe that at that time it was the largest debt issuance in the city's history. We've since reset that mark considerably, but
Really celebrating, finished in high school.
that's right. Mr. Schneider.
You might want to add that the middle school project came in under budget and on time.
That's correct, yes, as did the high school project. Yeah. So our school staff have been really tremendous in taking care of the capital plant for our schools over the past 20-plus years. And that's a really just talk about core infrastructure. The school staff have done an excellent job with that. Absolutely.
I'm only kidding. Let's do it that way. Yeah, this worked really brilliant. There we go. But
Go for it, Joyce.
anyway, yeah, go for it. Hi, Joyce Galovich. I'm at 209 Great Falls Street, just around the corner. Been a resident for quite some time. I just have a few items, and I might be jumping here and there. But on the meals tax, I understand it's only applicable when you go out to eat. You're not proposing putting one on in the budget that will affect us. So, and a good way to explain it too is anyone who's coming into the city and eats out, or I guess too is even if you purchase something at the grocery store, get the chicken for takeaway items, you're paying a meals tax on that. So maybe not everyone is aware of that. Some of these guys are walking out, but I was here to talk, also mention pavements and not so much the side. Well, yeah, because they're related. But it was good to see other people getting up here and talking about repaving, resurface, whatever you want to call it, and, excuse me, the sidewalks. I do walk a lot around the city, but on the pavements, I've noticed that we do have some narrow ones, and then you've got the utility poles right in, not in the middle, but close to, and if anyone who's needs accessible or carriages, this sort of thing, it'd be difficult for them to get around. I'm not suggesting widening the pavements in this area because it such down as where St. James School is, whatever that street is it Oak that comes down? There's some areas there that are narrow, and even down in Great Falls Street, where I live, there's one, and we do have a person that is wheelchair bound, that he still makes his way around there. But this Broad thing, I'm just first hearing of this, and I can't imagine us doing that and narrowing the street. I mean, I think they seem wide enough, and that's major traffic street there, emergencies, and when there are
Just to be
things-
clear, the plan, we're in right-of-way acquisition right now, so we're working with all the business owners along Broad Street, West Broad Street, to acquire additional right-of-way to be able to put in wider sidewalks.
Wow. But you're going to have to take up the street, part of the streets? No. The streets won't be affected, it's just the...
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some areas where you could tighten them, a foot or so if that's appropriate, but that's kind of an engineering decision. We're not reducing the lanes on Broad Street.
Right. When the weather gets better and people like to sit out, but when I walked by yesterday by the Betos, nice, whoever does the brick lane, when they do it, they do a nice job, whoever the city employs. But then I went on down, and if the restaurants have the right-of-way, and if it's their property, do they pay a fee or anything to put tables out, benches? Because I noticed on the Solus, Beto's looks nice and wide, and then Solus has tables going all the way down here and planters, and then up along the right-hand side in where the little shops are. There's still room to get by there, but when you're going to have two-way and strollers and
That's right.
whatever, I guess the question is, I know we're talking about budget, but I'm sort of getting on other things here, is does that can they just put out these planters and this sort of thing without even,
No, they need the city's permission to do it.
An ordinance or
And the city
something?
does regulate it, but we have to get out there frequently. They tend to creep. And,
yeah.
and
That,
so-
I mean, that's what I thought when I saw it. I said, well, the city, because, you know, we have Providence and a lot of other restaurants that are out there, and if it draws business, sure, why not? There's still enough room there.
It is, and
that's
it's a very
nice
attractive thing. People love to eat outdoors, and it's, you know, it's very enjoyable and good for business. And so the city is very supportive of it, but we do need to maintain, you know, throughway
Yeah,
on the
and
sidewalk.
I've also noticed on the pavements, the sidewalks, where, yeah, you do have one going, and then all of a sudden it comes to a stop and you have to cross over. I don't know if I'd want to see the budget going in and having to do major sidewalks, because then I think you're also going to have to take right of land or whatever you call it from people's personal property to put a pavement in there. And I won't be funny, but yeah, we're this small city, the village, and I'd still like to keep it somewhat quaint and this sort of thing without, and I know people talk about they want walkable, rideable. The other thing on that too, where the other fellows mentioned, is on the cracks, the ruts in the street, as we all know. If Public Works could do maybe just expedite or pick up the work on those and that sort of thing, that would be great, because when you talk about people walking with safety, ruts in the roads, the bicycles, the wheels will get stuck and all this, say the other things. So if they could maybe expedite that, not just look at potholes and this sort of thing. A place in point is, I just don't get why at Great Falls and Little Falls, when they resurfaced Great Falls, they stopped at one part of the Little Falls and then picked it up on the other side. Why they just didn't take it through than to wait for Little Falls to be done. I don't understand that. If someone could get me an answer, I'd really appreciate that. And to me, that shouldn't have anything with the budget. They should have carried on. And then with the storm drainage, when Public Works or whomever it is driving around, they see the grates are covered with leaves and everything, and we don't want this leaves and dirt going down into the drains, is make a note and let your people know. I want to say communicate or whatever. This tracking, I don't know if people know it's there online, this tracking system that Public Works has. If you see things and suggestions, I haven't asked them to get back to me, but you can request that to get back to you. But when I put in requests and I've then walked around, mostly with potholes, you will see something being done. My other one too on that is we need to keep up the streets clean, and so all this isn't going down in there. And I'll look that up on the solid waste too, because I'd be interested in that. And so we're looking to pay a fee and not have it come out of taxes, even though, but whether you use it or not, you're going to be charged, which makes sense if you're in a house or a townhouse, this kind of thing. It's this, so they can't come in. That works.
And Ms. Galovich, I'll just, the report of concern feature, I've shared it up on the screen on the city's homepage. On the bar to the left, there's lots of kind of our most frequent links that people click, including access to our treasurer's office who are here in the room. Report of concern is where people can report if there's a need for any of the things that you're mentioning. But our city crews are out there right now throughout the month of April and throughout the spring months to repair our roads, to fill in potholes. It was a rough winter. Those plows really tear the streets up. So we're in pothole repair mode right now. So it's a good time to hear from you. If they're out doing their own assessment, but it's helpful to get the feedback from people as well.
Yeah, on the budget, I know on that, the fee on the storm, yeah, it's going to keep going up, but maybe if you could get that down to $5 instead of $7. And even on the 2.5, if you can round that up to 3 on the personal property tax, that would be brilliant. Wyatt, on that, bringing our personal property taxes down. There's something I saw not too long ago, but I know when we're talking about doing the golf center up there and making improvements, that sort of thing. I thought I read behind there on Shreve Road, there's a piece of property there. Is somebody who owns that? I don't know if it's the Shreve property or whom, but who owns that? If they're planning on developing something there, and when they do that, would that have any major effect on the planning on doing the golf area? Not that they're going to come in and take it away, but any of the golf area, but have you heard of anything on that?
So I think I know the properties that you're referring to. They are in Fairfax County, and so
Right.
the city doesn't actively plan, what the future land use is for those. But I think you're talking about the ones kind of on the other side of the.
So, but is the golf area on Fairfax County
No, that's
also?
all in the city limits.
But the part that I'm thinking of is, right,
Fairfax
yeah, that's what I thought it'd be Fairfax County. I'm just saying if they start doing something and they're doing it, I'm sure there'd be planning there on that. Well, that's all I'll do at the moment. As I said, I like to see the real estate go to 3 versus 2.5. And if we can keep that storm fee down rather than using it to go up like we do with the decal, it keeps going up and up, and then we're doing the decal, but I want better to see on the roads, that sort of thing. And as I said, and I'm reiterating, people have been talking about the pavements and this sort of thing, but they also have to think of the streets too, and the crosswalks. Crosswalks have big ruts in, so that all has to come together. But the two chaps that were here, it would have been nice if, well, they can hear me, watch me later. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you. We'll get your comment, and then we have in the back of the room will be next. Yeah.
Wyatt, all this talk about streets and sidewalks reminded me that the city is going to straighten North Maple Avenue, I believe, is that right? In front of Park Towers, and as it comes down to Park Avenue, it's going to take, you people are going to take the bend out, aren't you?
No, that's not currently.
Oh, okay.
in the
All
plan.
right.
Now, with the Park Avenue project.
I'm sorry. I'm talking North Maple.
Yeah, no,
North Maple. I thought that you people, were going to straighten that, and we're going to lose a couple oak trees there.
Yeah, no, that's not currently in the plans. No.
There's no plan at all for that?
No.
Well, I've been misled then.
Yeah,
Because I've heard that that's going to happen.
Yeah, so Park and Maple, the part of the Great Streets project is to tighten up that intersection, but there's no plans to have Maple Avenue have a different configuration.
I guess I was misinformed then by people around me.
Okay.
Find a way.
No, okay, I apologize. I was going to suggest, if and when that ever happens, I might be dead by the time it does, but cars speed along North Maple. In fact, it would be good if it were straightened, because we've lost a lamp pole in front of the building a couple times. People come boom over that hill and take it out. Yeah, it'd be great if that intersection were sort of squared up a little bit with 90-degree corners.
That's the goal.
That would
So
be a
to
great
tighten-
goal.
When we talk about tightening up that intersection.
Yeah, that'd
that's
be a
what we're
great
referring-
goal.
And there might be some interim measures that the mayor was just referencing, because the Great Street project is still several years out. That's a
Very
complex
good.
project.
I'll probably be dead by then.
but there
If
might
you
be some interim
could you
measures.
put a memorial sort of sleeping policeman out there in the street? Because those cars whip past our building pretty fast there, Wyatt. Ever thought of that?
Okay.
Have you?
You mean like just park a vehicle there?
No, I was thinking actually raise the, those little speed bump.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
I know that, what's that? Yeah, because
Right.
people do treat that as kind of a,
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Wyatt, I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Hi.
Aye.
Gail Wadsworth, 200 North Maple Avenue, Park Towers. I do want to go on record. I'm glad this is being taped. This is now, we're coming to my 38th year of coming to talk about the issue of trash collection at Park Towers and other multifamily dwellings. So I'm still vertical, and I'm hoping to have this solved equitably before I am no longer vertical, okay? The one thing I did ask, and I apologize for not being here on time, maybe this was already addressed. I understand that our surrounding jurisdictions have figured out their own solutions to this to be more equitable to multifamily dwellings. Is that information in some sort of a chart? Does the council have this that could be shared with the rest of us, other than our having to go out and do the individual research on all of these ourselves?
Yeah, we'll touch on that with the presentation on the 7th. And it is a mix. You have Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax. They have a separate fee for solid waste services. City of Fairfax, Vienna, Herndon, it's just built into the general taxes the way the city does. So the way the city does it today is not atypical. There are many jurisdictions to do it just the way we do it. And there are other examples where there is a standalone fee for curbside pickup. So that's kind of a quick answer to your question, but we'll have some of those examples in the information on the 7th.
I would very much look forward to seeing that information, yes, because, as I said, 38 years.
Okay.
Yeah, no one's addressed schools. I would like to say with the school budget, maybe I read it incorrectly, but I'm seeing where, they've come in with the budget, but I read something online, the nice printout that you all have online on the financial budget, something about we have a surplus, and with the surplus, we're giving the schools an additional $500,000 in addition to what we're already getting, or if we have a surplus, we give it to the schools?
Yeah, I'm not following. I'm not quite sure
I
what
don't know,
you're referring to.
I'll find it and
Yeah.
maybe let them know. But it was online where I saw with the budget for 26, or maybe it was last year's or something like this,
Right.
where any surplus we had, you all divvied, some goes to CIP. and
That's right.
We'll
So
give
at
to the
the
school
end of
and
the
this sort of
year,
thing.
usually in September, we do we have all the numbers for the prior fiscal year. And if there was extra money per our principles of revenue sharing that the general government and the schools have, the schools get a share of that.
Why don't we give it back to the taxpayers, or give it to Public Works and expedite getting our streets done and the sewer, the drain water, storm water,
And
and
those are
this
all
sort of
things that
thing.
the council does consider, but that's generally a fall discussion, not a spring
Right,
budget
okay,
discussion.
yeah. But isn't it in this budget we do, what we allocate to the schools? Because I also read something which I sort of, well, I don't know if it's there or not, but with the principal going out, Noonan, and then I guess requesting, although I don't know if it's in the overall amount, can we get another additional whatever, let's do 6, 9, and then let's jack it up to 7 something. So I know we have this every year with the schools and the budgets, and maybe we can cut back a little bit there and just take a second glance at what the schools want. And, it's always these wish lists, and we just seem to give them whatever they ask for and not question. So anyway, there we are. Thank you.
All right, well, we advertised this to end at 1 o'clock, and it's 1:15. And thank you for coming today. Thank you for your engagement. And thank you for, as we asked at the beginning, for your suggestions, your advice, your comments. And we'll continue this engagement all the way through budget final consideration on May 12th. Everybody have a great afternoon and look forward to the next meeting.
When will that be?
April 7th.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.